Hey all, welcome back to the lab. In this video, we're talking about TTL Calculator, basically a calculator that converts DNS TTL in seconds to human-readable time, and it's built with Datastar, which is its little, special secret sauce, I guess. So I just launched it, and so this video is really announcing it to the world, and we're going to talk about what it is, why I built it, and how I built it. And so you can see it live here, and really it's just like a little calculator, right? So if I put in 60 seconds, and this will be your TTL, then it converts it to 1 minute. If I put in, another hour over here, it'll convert it over there, and stuff like that. So very simple, little web app. Okay, why did I build this? Well, because I wanted to, but really I was debugging one of my site's DNS rules. I was like, why isn't this working? Is it because the TTL hasn't expired yet? And then you see like a big number that's like 1800 and you're like, what is that? And I wanted to know like how long that was. And so I did a quick Google search, and there was literally one site that came up in my search that actually had a calculator to do this conversion. And I thought that was like weird. Everything else was like some insurance converter thing, which was like totally unrelated to what I wanted. And I thought this was fun. I love little sites that only do like one thing, and it was pretty old. And it was very weird to me that there was only one of them, because like what if the person running this like random little site just like doesn't keep it up, it's just gone, and now there's no calculator available. And so I decided to build one myself. And this aligns with one of my goals this year, which is to really just be more curious, and that will probably end up looking like building more random things that I found that I thought were interesting, and so I just remixed my own version of it. And so this one kind of scratched my own itch. I was curious about it, and I'm trying to build more web apps anyway, and so this was a really good fit, and so decided to roll my own. All right, how I built it. So as usual, I started off with CloudSeed, my F# project boilerplate. This gave me the core web app scaffolding, and I just needed to build out like the views, the business logic, and customize it a little bit for this site. So that's why I always use it to start it. It basically does 80% of the work for me, at least for setting things up that you got to set up for every single project. And then I can just build, the site itself that I wanted. So for front end here, we're using server-side rendered HTML using Falco.markup, which is in HTML DSL. I'm using Bulma for styling and Datastar for reactivity. And we'll talk more about Datastar in a minute because I think it's pretty cool. And for the backend, I'm using F# and Falco. For more on that, and I have a post on building full stack web apps with F# and Falco here. For the database, we don't actually need one right now. It's literally just a calculator. Don't need to store anything, but it's using Postgres. Postgres is there on my server if I want it. And for hosting, I'm using a Docker container configured with Coolify and running on Hetzner. So kind of self-hosting, but really it's a VPS, but it's not like full cloud because I'm really doing a lot of the things on the server myself. So whatever you want to call that. And for more on that, you can learn more about how I'm hosting with Coolify in this post here. Okay, so that's the overview, and I wanted to touch on some notable differences in how I built this app versus how I usually build web apps. And the first is choosing Falco over Giraffe for my web app. I've used Giraffe for years. I think it's great. It's very stable. It's used by a lot of people in the F# community, but personally, I find the APIs of Falco just a lot simpler and cleaner. And I also want to support the creator because he's been doing a lot of great work. He's super nice. He's been putting out a bunch of versions and improvements. And so I kind of want to jump on this train and write it out and see where it goes. Now for styling, I went with Bulma over Tailwind. And again, this is really because I just find Bulma a lot simpler. And personally, I just suck at doing styling. And so while Tailwind gives you a lot of control and configuration, I'm bad at those things. So I always end up configuring it poorly, and so it's great, you have all this power and you always use it irresponsibly. And on the other hand, Bulma is lightweight, it looks pretty decent, and it gives me less room to configure it, which really means less room to configure it badly. And so for someone like me who's just stylistically challenged with front ends and CSS, this is just a much better fit for how I develop and how my brain works. And I think the most cool thing about this project is choosing Datastar over HTMX or Alpine or any of the other kind of hypermedia first libraries and frameworks. And this is a new experiment for me. I haven't really used Datastar at all. This is my first project using it. And so I don't know if it's going to stick, and I can't make a recommendation for this for sure. But I will say overall, I'm very impressed with Datastar, and it seems to click a bit more for what I want to use it for, which is have this hypermedia thing run my full web app and all pages of it than some of the other tools I've used. And so there's more to come here. I built a example project of this, and maybe I'll link it here after this, that basically built this calculator in both Alpine and Datastar, and maybe I should also add an HTMX version just to compare them. And I just think Datastar is a lot cleaner overall, at least for use cases like this. And just to give you like an idea of this, I forget I can't look at the signals in here. So it's like a little bit less declarative than HTMX, because HTMX you just be able to see all the data here. Datastar kind of takes over the signals, so you can't quite see them. But you can see here that basically I have an on change, and it's going to like post this thing. And so if I change days and like remove that, we can see that we actually do a fetch. And my payload is, these are the actual signals that are in JS. And then it actually sends the whole thing to the server, and then the server is calculating stuff and it's returning what the new signals should be. So it's kind of like more of like a data-based request response system that almost looks more like JSON, but it's run over SSE and just like pure text. And so it's a little bit different, but like quite powerful. And you can also send up markup here if you wanted to run it like HTMX as well. So anyway, I thought this was pretty cool. I'll probably explore more of it myself in future projects as well. But one of the notable differences here. And then finally, I am using Coolify to host my apps. You know, I've done this for the past few apps of mine, but it's always been like, do I use serverless containers on something, or do I just like run Coolify on my own machine? And I'm pretty solidly in the camp of just run my own machine with Coolify now. And so I think this is the first project that I've released where I wasn't running it on both to start, and I've had a really good experience with it, so that's probably what I'll be doing for the rest of 2025 as well. Now overall, I've been really enjoying the continued move to like simpler technologies, so expect some of these to land in CloudSeed, as really that just tracks my state of the art for building simple scalable systems for web apps. And so of these, I would probably expect maybe moving over to Falco instead of Giraffe, and then potentially ripping out the Tailwind stuff, and then just starting with Bulma, because this is just much easier for someone to configure if they want to go for like Pico or Bootstrap or something like that. And so it's just simpler overall. And I think that's really the point of the framework anyway. Next. So yeah, really just built this site to cover a very niche need. And so it's basically done, right? Like the whole point is so that it can calculate DNS TTLs quickly for you, and it does that. But I think if people start using it, or like I get ideas for changes, I might, change it up a little bit more, but don't really see anything directly on the roadmap from here on out. Now, if you like this post, you might also like 1 million checkboxes, globally synced data with HTMX. You might also be interested in the HAM stack, a simple scalable tech stack for building modern web apps fast and cheap, which is still basically my philosophy for moving towards this kind of like simpler, more scalable set of technologies that really focus on kind of web fundamentals. And then finally, you might be interested in why F# is a fun programming language, which kind of describes like why I keep going back to F# even though it's not the most popular language in the world. So that's it for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.